Well, surprise, surprise. It turns out that orange piece of crap, convicted felon president, is not all that popular. Imagine that. I know if you watch Fox News or any right-wing Trump cult propaganda media, you would come away thinking that he's the most popular president in all of American history. I mean, you've got members of Congress talking about wanting to put him on Mount Rushmore. Wow, he must be so popular. The truth of the matter is that Trump has never been popular. He won what, by like 1.5% of the vote? It was one of the smallest popular vote victories in history. He won 49.9% of the vote. Didn't even get a majority. Hardly a sweeping mandate. And now we have a new poll. Let me see if I can call it up here. Here you go. Trump's approval rating slips as Americans worry about the economy. Really? His approval has slipped? Let's read a little of this. U.S. President Donald Trump's approval rating has ticked slightly lower in recent days as more Americans worried about the direction of the U.S. economy as the new leader threatens a host of countries with tariffs, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll. The 6-day poll, which closed on Tuesday, showed 44% of respondents approved of the job Trump is doing as president, down from 45, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now I know people were freaking out because there was a poll that was being reported last week that showed he had a 53% approval rating. Now, I believe that was, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be mistaken, I believe that was a CBS poll. CBS, by the way, is the network that is right now in negotiations with Donald Trump to settle a bogus lawsuit that Trump filed against them for, like, it's over $1 billion lawsuit because Donald Trump didn't like the interview that 60 Minutes did with Kamala Harris before the election. And Trump has been threatening them. And threatening them, having the FCC threaten them. So in the midst of all of those threats and lawsuit, CBS comes out with a poll that shows Trump has 53% support. Imagine that. And of course, that was the poll that got most of the traction, most of the coverage in the news last week. There were other polls. That's the only poll I saw that had his approval so high. Most of the other polls have him in the low to mid 40s. And this, what is this? Ipsos poll, Reuters Ipsos, has him at 44%. Keep in mind, this man is only in his first few weeks in office, and he's only at a 44% approval rating. That is historically very low for a new president in the first month of his presidency. So keep that in mind. And the reason why I'm reporting on this is that his approval by the American people is really important from our point of view. You know, I have people all the time asking me, what can we do? What can we do? Well, the truth of the matter is that we live in a democracy, at least for the moment. And in a democracy, when you don't have power, as we don't have power right now, there's really not a whole hell of a lot that we can do. And the things that we could possibly do, they all begin, if any of them are going to be effective, they all begin with us turning the American people to the greatest extent possible against Donald Trump. So we need people not to approve of this guy. We need people to oppose this guy. So the most important thing we can be doing right now is waking people up to the disaster that is the Trump presidency. That's the first thing and the most important thing that we can be doing right now. And Trump is unpopular. Don't allow the bullshit in the media to make you think that he's popular. Okay? He is not. And he's only going to become less popular as time goes by because everything he's doing is a disaster. And I mean everything. The economy he is going to destroy. Okay? Everything he's doing will make the economy worse. But it's not just the economy. It's even things that you think he's doing really well on. Like, for example, immigration. But the truth is, he's failing on immigration too. Check this out. This is from MSN. ICE struggles to boost arrest numbers despite infusion of resources. Really? Trump isn't engaging in mass deportations? I thought he was going to be rounding up millions of people. I thought we were going to see, detention camps all over the place for these millions of illegal aliens that he would be rounding up. So how is it, if we are overflowing in this country with illegal aliens, as we've been told time and again by Trump and the Trump propaganda media, then how is it that they're not able to find any of these illegals? How is this possible? Let's read a little bit. And by the way, before I do, keep this in mind. I told you we weren't going to see mass deportations. Never forget this. This is an oligarch presidency. Donald Trump was bought and paid for by the billionaire class. Do you think that the billionaire class who bought his presidency are going to allow him to round up and deport all of their cheap immigrant labor? No, it's not going to happen. Okay, so let's read a little of this. Since taking office, President Donald Trump has launched an all-of-government immigration crackdown with the urgency of a wartime effort. A mobilization comparable in scope to the responses to the 9/11 attacks and the coronavirus pandemic. But despite the rapid infusion of resources, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is struggling to arrest higher numbers of immigrants and falling far short of the administration's goals. Well, how can that be? Here they are telling us that Trump has launched this all-of-government immigration crackdown with the urgency of a wartime effort. So how is it that he is failing so spectacularly in rounding up all these illegal aliens? We had an article last week about the numbers that are actually being rounded up and deported, and Trump's numbers are lower than Biden's numbers. So how can this be happening? If this is Donald Trump's number one priority, and he's putting all these resources into rounding up these people, how is it that he's failing so miserably? It's because of the way they're going about it. The truth is, they do not, the easiest way to do this is go to the places where they are, where there's a whole bunch of them. Okay, so these big corporate agricultural centers, go there. That's where there's a lot of illegal immigrants working. Now, I know, a lot of them aren't showing up, but you go there, and even if they're not showing up, you get all the personnel files, you find out where they are, you go round them up. But Donald Trump isn't going to round up those people. He's not going to go to factories, all right, where there's a lot of illegals working. They're not going to go to these construction sites where there's lots of illegals, and all these other places where most of the work is being done by illegal aliens. Why? Because his oligarch masters won't let him deport their cheap labor. So what are they doing instead? They're walking the streets of Chicago and other places. They're trying to pick up people off the street one by one. And that is slow going, and that's hard. I mean, you're like shaking down people on the street and trying to come across an illegal here or there and then deporting them. They're specifically not going after these large congregations in these factories and on these farms where they could be rounding up tons and tons of illegals. But they're not doing it because the oligarch masters won't let them. So they're doing it piecemeal, and they're not coming up with the numbers. This whole thing exposes the fraud. It exposes what I've been telling you all along. There aren't going to be mass deportations. The oligarch masters who bought and paid for Donald Trump aren't going to let it happen. Okay, so what other things is Donald Trump doing and failing at? Well, because it's such a friggin' clown show. Take a look at this. Remember last week we had the story about how Doge is going around firing everybody, and they fired a bunch of people who worked to upkeep our nuclear weapons programs. And then Once they realized that they fired those people, they tried desperately to like rehire them, but they didn't have a way to get in contact with them. Well, the same thing is happening in other areas as well. Take a look at this. USDA says it accidentally fired officials working on bird flu and is now trying to rehire them. This whole thing is such a colossal shit show. Here we have egg prices through the roof. And it's things like egg prices and inflation that Donald Trump is going to do nothing to solve. That is going to be his downfall. Now look, I know some of you, because I hear it all the time, you tell me the cult will never turn on him. They don't care about eggs. It's not about eggs to them. You are right about the cult. They will never turn on him. They don't care. Issues don't matter to them. Okay, I understand that. But Donald Trump did not get elected with the cult alone. All right, the cult is actually not all that big. 20%, maybe 30% of the electorate on the high end. Okay, Trump did not get elected just with the cult. He did get elected by a lot of people for whom the economy was the number one issue. And all the data from the election backs that up. And it is with people like that who bought the lie that things were so good under Donald Trump, and they believed his bullshit lies that he's going to start turning around the economy, lowering prices on day one. They believed it. And when this doesn't happen, and it ain't going to happen, didn't happen on day one, it didn't happen in the first month, it's not going to happen in the first 6 months, he's going to make all of this worse. It's those people who are going to turn on him. Okay, and so here we have the bird flu, jacking up the price of eggs. What, it's like $10 for a friggin' dozen eggs or something ridiculous. And here we have Trump and his incompetent group of buffoons in his administration accidentally fire a bunch of people working on bird flu. Okay, these are the kinds of things. You want to know what we need to be doing? Our number one job is to make the American people aware of his incompetence. Show them this. Okay, this is what you need to do. Tell all your friends and family. Make sure they know this. Post it on your Facebook or whatever. Send emails. Talk about it. Whatever. We need to get people to see that this man is a disaster. He's doing nothing to solve any of the problems he promised to solve. And check this out. What has Donald Trump been doing? We're told he's doing so much. Oh, he's issuing executive orders left and right, most of which are completely meaningless nonsense. Most of the things, I was thinking about it because I posted a video earlier today about one of his latest executive orders that everyone's all outraged about. It's this executive order where he claims that he's the final word about what the law is, and it sounds super dictatorial, like he's saying, I'm the law, not the courts. The courts don't get to decide what the law says. That's me. I'm a king. It sounded like that. But when you read the executive order, it's a big pile of nothing, just like most of his executive orders. And I was thinking about it. So many of the executive orders that he passes or that he signs, most of these things wouldn't even have been executive orders in past administrations had they done the same thing. And many of these things are routine executive orders, but they dress them up, they put them in executive orders. I mean, they're routine things that don't even need to be in the form of an executive order. All of these things, so many of these things, we shouldn't even hear about, like this one executive order from yesterday. It's a big pile of nothing that we shouldn't even have heard about. It should have been just like an email that went out to his department heads. But Trump has to make it look like he's doing a whole lot of stuff when he's really doing very little. The only one's actually doing anything is Elon Musk, and everything he's doing is illegal and unconstitutional. Trump's doing virtually nothing. What's Trump doing? Donald Trump has spent nearly a quarter of his first month back in office golfing. Again, I told you this is what he was going to do. That's what he did the first. This is a lazy sack of shit. This man doesn't work. You think he doesn't even know what these, when he sits there in his Oval Office for these executive order signing ceremonies, it's clear he doesn't even know what the hell he's signing. He's never even seen these things before. They put it in front of him and then they explain what it is. and then he says some stupid sentence or two, sounds like a complete idiot, and then he signs it. Oh, that's a big deal, and he signs it. He doesn't even know what the hell is in these things. He spends all his time golfing. Today, he's golfing. Yesterday, golfing. Monday, golfing. This weekend, he was golfing and he was at NASCAR. Last weekend, it was the Super Bowl. This is what he does. He golfs, and he watches Fox News, and he posts on Truth Social. That's all he did in his first administration. That's what he's doing now. Okay? And this we need to be using. All these people who are expecting the price of their groceries to come down, point this shit out. Trump is doing nothing. Show them those videos. There's a million clips out there of Trump promising to reduce the price of groceries starting on day one. Show what he's actually doing. This is what he's doing. He's golfing. He's golfing. He's not doing shit about your groceries. He's not doing shit about eggs. He's golfing. You know, he's going around in circles at NASCAR. You know, so the cult at NASCAR can praise him. This is all he's doing. Anyway, the guy's a disaster. He's an absolute disaster, and that's going to catch up to him. At the end of the day, Americans care about, most of Americans only care about what affects them personally. And unfortunately, they're too stupid to understand how anything actually works. And so the bad thing is, when there's things happening in the economy that they don't like grocery prices are too high, they blamed Joe Biden even though he had nothing to do with it. The flip side of that is that now they're going to, blame Trump. Maybe not immediately. It might take some time. They might cut him some slack. But eventually, they're going to start turning on this orange piece of shit. Because not only is he not going to make anything better, he is going to make things so much worse. And we have the added benefit of this man having promised to solve inflation and bring down prices starting on day one. We have the video clips. And we have the facts that he's not doing anything. We have him doing this. Okay? So let's remind everyone, let's make sure everybody knows that he's doing this. He's not doing anything about their egg prices. Oh, and he's doing this. He's golfing and he's firing people who would have been working on the bird flu. All right? He's making everything worse. This is where we begin. Let's drive down his popularity. Not that he's popular, but let's drive those numbers down. And other things become more possible. It becomes easier to oppose him. And all kinds of other possibilities for dealing with this piece of crap begin to open up the lower his poll numbers go. So that's what we need to be doing. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Talk to you again soon.